Students of Silicon Valley, you are welcome to the next lesson, and in this lesson we'll be talking about colonization and the effect of colonization on Ghana. As such, we'll be looking at the introduction of formal education. So as I said earlier on, when the Europeans came, our forefathers were having some form of education already, but they brought what we call formal education. So with the formal education, they introduced schools at the castle areas, and those schools were meant to educate mulatto children. When I talk about mulatto children, I'm talking about children that the Europeans had with the black ladies. So those children were called mulatto children, and as a result of those children, they established schools at the castles. So for instance, the Elmina castles had a school. Other castles too, like Osu Castle, also had schools, and those schools were used to educate those children that they had with the black ladies. So in the cause, the Achimota School and Kolebu Hospital were also built by Sir Gordon Godgesby. Colonization helped to develop the transport and the communication sector through roads and railway construction. So for example, we can talk about Accra and Kumasi railway line, which was built in 1928. We welcome to the next slide of our lesson. In this slide, we shall be talking about the effect of colonization on Ghana. So as I said earlier on, when we hear about colonization, we're simply talking about how to rule another country. So colonization led to the introduction of cars, aeroplanes and radio. There was a period in history that we call Industrial Revolution period, and that was the period when slave trade had to be stopped. And when slave trade was stopped, it means that there was a need to manufacture cars, aeroplanes and radio to replace work that were being done by human beings. So for instance, human beings were walking from the middle part of the Gold Coast to the coastal areas with headloads of foodstuffs. So this thing had to be stopped as a result of the introduction of cars and other machines. Secondly, English language was brought to us by the Europeans. So when the Europeans colonized us, they had to bring what we call the English language. The English language is a foreign language, and that is the language that we use currently as the language of communication, the language of business, the language of teaching. Next, we shall be talking about Christianity. It was the Europeans that brought Christianity. Our forefathers were mainly idol worshippers, or most of them were pagans, though they knew much about God. But the way they expressed their mode of worship was through pouring of libations, etc., etc. But the Europeans brought what we call Christianity, and as a result of Christianity, they established churches like the Catholic Church and the Presbyterian churches. There were other churches too that they established, and all these things were as a result of colonization. Next, we shall talk about growth of towns. So colonization led to the growth of towns such as Cape Coast. Cape Coast was then the capital of the Gold Coast, and this was later changed to Accra in 1877. The third slide talks about how colonization retarded progress. So when I talk about retarded, how colonization did not allow development to go on. So in this lesson, we shall look at the loss of our identity and destruction of our culture. So they made us believe that we cannot do anything on our own. So the Europeans said we cannot take any initiative. So this led to slavery mentality and the loss of our identity and destruction of our culture. Ghanaians had a unique culture, a culture that was well emulated or copied by most of the foreign nations. But then when the Europeans came, we lost most of our cultural identity. Second, colonization led to the development of taste for foreign goods, and this affected our local industries. There are most of Ghanaians who do not like our local goods. They like goods that were made from the European countries, and they had a belief that those goods were of better quality as compared to those which were made locally. Next, Ghanaians felt satisfied with the production of raw materials to feed the European industries. So Ghana has not been able to move into the manufacturing and tertiary levels of production after so many years of gaining independence from the whites. In this slide, we shall be talking about how to correct the negative attitude as a result of colonization. So Ghanaians had some form of attitude which were incorrect or negative, and this happened as a result of the way we were colonized by the Europeans, and there is the need for us to correct those kinds of attitude. So initially we should eat what we grow, as Dan Lartey said some years back. We should, whatever thing that we produce in this country, we should patronize it, we should use it, we should go for made in Ghana goods. Our local rice, our local cloths and other things, we should go for them instead of going for those that have been imported from the European countries. We should also re-examine and improve our cultural practice and make it dynamic. When I say dynamic, I'm talking about we should find a way of changing our culture. Culture is not static. It is supposed to be changed. So we need to change our culture. We should also have confidence in ourselves to do things. We should not always rely on the Europeans to tell us what we should do. We should have confidence to do most of our things. Lastly, we should have prestige for our local goods. We should not attach more taste to foreign goods, that foreign goods are better. We should stop the prestige that we attach to foreign goods. We should avoid it if possible, so that we should have more attention. We should have more sort of attention for our local made goods, so that we can patronize them well.